Welcome back to another episode. I'm sure you remember last time this is the stage we got to. We've got all the ignition system on and we've got it all, the ignition system timed up so it should fire. Just got to do a few little bits to the front of the engine before we can start working on getting the oil pump in. And then bits include, these are our housings. So we have a water pump housing, a water pump. This is the one off of my other engine. It's used, it's not done a lot of miles, and it is clean now. And there's nothing wrong with the bearings at all, so we're going to reuse it. We've got a GT6 thermostat housing, and then we've got our little adapter bit port that goes on the side of this for cooling to flow. So what we're going to do now is we're going to paint it all, because I've spent loads of time cleaning it up because they were all very rusty. Before I go ahead and paint them, what I am going to do is I'm going to assemble them, because I'm going to make my life a little bit easier and paint them all in one go, which means I won't have to mask off these surface areas. And I won't have to mask off this surface area, and it'll save me a lot of time. So let's paint it all together in one piece, and then we'll only have to mask up the surface area that mounts to the block on the back here. I've just fitted some new studs with a little bit of copper slip in there. I dare say it's all going to have to come apart again at some point, so I'm going to make it easy for myself next time. It's very unlikely I'm ever going to need to change these studs, but if for whatever reason I do, I should be able to easily. They're in there nice and tight now. I've got a new gasket. We're going to use some well seal on this, as we have on every other thing like this, just to make it 100% sure that we're going to get a good seal there. So let's put a little bit of that stuff on here, drop the gasket on, a little bit more on the other side, and then plonk it all together. Okay, so we've got our water pump on. Once you've got it on, just spin it to make sure that your studs don't touch the back side of this water pump pulley, which mine do not, which is perfect. Obviously I've got my little compression washers in there to help lock the nuts in place, and a little bit of copper slip on the stud as well, so that it comes apart in the future. I'm not worried about these bolts getting painted, so I'm quite happy for them to get painted. They're all brand new, which is quite nice. A little bit annoying they are getting painted, but it makes more sense for me to do it all assembled than it does all stripped apart. Now we're going to put the thermostat housing on. This could go on two ways, just make sure you do it the right way. Obviously the hose points towards the radiator, so that'll go that way towards the front the pulley. So I'm going to stick that on now as well. Okay, so we are all assembled. I've put the top on. Unfortunately, I was missing the gasket for this, so I've left the thermostat out, so this is going to have to come apart again, which isn't the end of the world at the end of the day. It's just nice that this bit's done and doesn't have to come apart again. This one, just have to undo the bolts, put the thermostat in, plonk gasket in there. I couldn't remember what side this little bit goes on. Obviously, this is all out of a Triumph 2000, and this is a GT6. I assume that this is going to clash with this. One of the sides had the original temperature sensor in it, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll try and figure that out. So yeah, quite happy with how we're getting on with this. Just got to give it some paint now. Okay, so this is where we got to the other night. I'm not doing any more of that today. It is Saturday and sun is shining and we have a little bit of time today. So we're going to take the engine out of this Triumph. But first I need to make some space for an engine and gearbox to go. So let's go and do that. Okay, so this is the state I've got it in right now. Everything is off and disconnected other than the two engine mount bolts. So we're going to take the engine mount bolts off and hopefully lift this thing out. I can't remember if I have to remove the mount from the mount on the block. It's possible I might have to, because I don't really see it coming out from behind here without bringing the engine backwards, which isn't going to happen. So we'll unbolt it, see if we can get it out. If we can't, then we'll just unbolt the mounting bracket from the block. Car has seen better days. It has certainly not sat well while it's been off the road for the last couple of years, but we'll get the engine out, we'll assess how bad it is, and we're going to have to do a little bit of welding to it before we get it back on the road anyway, but I know that. But let's get it running first. Okay, so we have it all out. This is our freshly reconditioned gearbox that we had done about a year before the engine went wrong. So this gearbox is mint, other than the fact it doesn't stay in third, but we're going to go over why it does that at some point in a video. We'll sort that out before it goes all back together. Right now we're going to take the gearbox off of the engine. I need the sump off of this, so I need to turn it upside down, but I'm not doing that with the gearbox on there. Not only is it unneeded weight, it also doesn't need to get damaged. So let's pull the gearbox off. I'm not going to record it, it's very simple. Just undo the bolts and pull it off. Okay, so I've got a little carried away. The engine is on a stand and an axle, well, it's an axle stand and a jack. Pulled the sump off of it, because that's the bit I need. I need to get these engine mounts off as well, because I need these. Well, I say I need the mounts. I need the brackets, because these, couple-year-old mounts are knackered. So we're not going to reuse those. I'm going to show you the sump. Okay, so these are the two sumps. The one on the left is our Triumph 2500 sump, and the one on the right, which is down here, is our Triumph GT6 sump. We have got a couple of bits of metal in the bottom here. Big chunks of metal. I assumed that I had broken a piston ring, and by the looking of the metal that is in there, I would say I quite literally destroyed a piston ring. But we will have a look in another video. We'll strip it down. You can see the difference between the two sumps. See how much higher off the ground the GT6 sump sits? That's because all of the oiling area is further towards the back of the engine to clear the subframe, and obviously this engine doesn't need to do that, so it's a bigger sump. Well, it's a shallower sump but further forward. We are going to modify the GT6 sump. We're going to put a baffle in there because we don't want any oil starvation. So now that we've done this, we are going to put this 2500 sump on the engine, just so it's got something to sit on it, and then we're going to bring the engine in here, take the mounts off it, call it a day for the engine stuff outside. Alright, so we're back and it's another day, and I've done a little bit of work. I've got the thermostat housing and all of those bits that we prepped earlier all in the garage, and they are all painted now. Just waiting for them to dry, do a couple coats on them. While they're drying, we're going to get started on the engine over here. We need to fit the oil pump, so we might as well go ahead and do that. Okay, so that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be very heavy to turn over. I don't reckon I'll be able to get back up on my own, but we'll find out when we get around to doing that. Hopefully it won't be for a little while, because we've got to put the sump back on and do some clearances and make a baffled sump and all of that. But first, we are going to put the oil pump on. I've just been doing some research, and it turns out these do not have a gasket. I did not remember whether it had a gasket on it when I took it apart or not, but these do not have a gasket. Looking over here at my workshop manual, it quite clearly does not state anywhere that it needs a gasket. I may use a little bit of well seal, and honestly, when I say a little bit, I'm going to use a very, very thin smear of well seal just to help with sealing. Too much of it and it's going to splurge out the edges, and you might actually end up blocking oilways, which is going to do more harm than good. So if you are going to do it, do a very, very thin layer of it. Like when I say thin, I mean really thin. I'm probably going to put it on the oil pump side, because you don't want to smear the whole of this, because this oil pump actually has holes and you don't want to cover all these holes up. So I'm going to go ahead and plonk that in now and get it all tightened up and get my strainer on, and then at that point we're pretty much ready to start playing with the sump. Unfortunately, I'm not ready to play with the sump yet. The sump is filthy dirty. It's just come off that other engine that we just took out the car, so I need to take it to work, take the parts cleaner, clean it up. So what's a couple of seconds for you is going to be a couple of days for me probably. So yeah, let's crack on. Okay, so I've plonked it on. I didn't use any well seal in the end. I thought to myself, you know what, it's not worth risking it. Just thinking about it, any well seal getting in the oiling system really could cause havoc with things, so it's not worth the risk. The engine is designed to have an oil pump with metal to metal mating surfaces, so that's how we're going to run it. I did make sure I cleaned up the mating surfaces nicely, and I've torqued them up to spec, which is 10 foot-pounds. Now we need to fit our oil strainer, which I'm going to do now. Okay, so that's obviously quite straightforward. Just screw it in. This one is, the position to somewhat is adjustable. I can imagine they're probably going to want it as low as you can in the sump, obviously not touching the bottom, that would be a bad idea, but getting it quite low so that you keep that submerged in the oil as much as possible would be great. I haven't got obviously the sump yet, so we're not going to set the position, so I've left all this loose so that we can just adjust it later on. Okay, so what can I do now? I'm going to go outside and do a little bit more painting on them bits I mentioned earlier, and then really just cleaning up the mating surface ready for the sump when we do get around to fitting it. So that's what I'm going to do, I think. Okay, so I put another coat on the bits out there. I've also gone around this with a, I went around it with a Stanley blade, and I've got it nice and flat. It obviously doesn't look like it's perfectly clean, but it is perfectly flat. I'm very, very happy with it. And if there are any imperfections, we'll be using weld seal on the sump pan. I'm not going to change my mind about that one. That is 100% going to get a little bit of weld seal on it, which will help seal any imperfections. One thing we are going to need is we need our dipstick in here so that we know where it lands, so that we can make holes for it for our baffled sump that we're going to be putting in there. So I thought I'd paint it because it's one of them things that looked, I pulled it off the shelf down there and it looked disgusting, so we've painted it. It's going to go moon dust silver is the colour I've decided to paint it, which is a Ford colour, mainly because I had the colour. I think silver is going to look really nice. And it also puts my little bit of Fiesta into the Spitfire because I like my Fiestas. So very happy with that. Just got to put some clear coat on it, or one more coat of moon dust silver and then some clear coat, and then I'll plonk it into the block, and then we know where everything lands. I was hoping to get the clear coat on it tonight so I could stick it in tomorrow night, but let's be honest, I'm not going to have the sump 100% ready to go until a couple of days probably. So yes, let's leave it there and get some paint on it in the meantime. Okay, so we're going to spend a little bit of time playing with the sump today, and our first challenge is going to be clearancing the sump for the crankshaft. If I turn this engine over, you will notice quite quickly that our crankshaft hits against the sump and the sump lid's off, which of course is no good. So we're going to put the crankshaft to the highest point about there. Basically we're going to take the sump off and we're going to take a hammer to it. And just get it clearance just enough so that we can have no touching, and hopefully about 3mm worth of clearance at the minimum. Okay, so the job is literally going to be just a repeated process of what I'm doing. Take the sump off, hammer it. You can see I've now got a bulge. Refit it, turn it over, see if it clears. If it doesn't, take it off, re-hammer it. Do the same over and over again until we've actually got a little bit of clearance. And then once we've got clearance, we're going to stick a little bit of blue tack in there, and we're going to figure out how much clearance we have, because the putting the blue tack on the bottom of the sump and then turning the engine over, we'll be able to see where the crankshaft scrapes, and we'll be able to measure the thickness. So that's the plan. Take it off, keep hammering it. I'm going to have to do another one here, unfortunately, because the other one also hits. So yeah, just a repeated process of this until we finally get somewhere. Okay, so I'm changing plans. I was told that you could clearance it from hammering it, but I just don't see it happening. It's quite a big difference. I have actually ended up making holes in my sump, and I've decided that it's just better just to cut it all out and refabricate this part of the sump in two places. I may end up just doing the whole thing in one go rather than doing two separate, but I will cut this section out first just to see what we're dealing with. Yeah, it only got me so far. I've got a warped sump now, which I can get back. I'll tighten bolts up gradually until it all pulls it back into being straight. But for now, we're just going to cut all of this out and then pretend that this never happened. Okay, so a little bit different from the last time you saw it. We've now got a massive hole in it. This is what we're going to be modifying. As you can see, we've got our two end caps here that are clashing with our sump quite dramatically. All exposed. I'll bring the engine round. You can see that this one is also quite a considerable distance, and I was asking quite a lot of this sump to stretch that far, so unfortunately it's not going to happen. What we are going to do instead though is we're just going to make a plate that goes over here that's just got a slight dip in it, just to allow the allow the end caps to have a little bit of clearance is basically all we're doing here. I don't want to go too far up because I know the steering rack is somewhere and the chassis rail is definitely directly here, so I'm a little bit worried that this is going to cause issues for the chassis rail, but we will only know by trialing and error, unfortunately. So we're gonna go and modify it and find out how it fits afterwards, I suppose. And then we'll change it again if it doesn't fit, or hammer it, we'll see. Right, I'm going to make a template out of CAD, cardboard aided design, and yeah, use that to make my my metal plate. Okay, so I can't remember where we got to last time. I'm pretty sure I didn't have this. I've made a sump, or a sump extension. It's going to plonk on there. This is all clean, so I'm not worried about getting any contaminants in there. Basically, it's just going to sit on the bottom of this sump once I've welded it on. And it does give us adequate enough clearance from our crankshaft, which is awesome. The next job I've got to do, which I don't have time to do tonight, I'm going to take this sump back off. I'm going to hammer these little bits flat, because I want to have a flat plate along the back here, because obviously I haven't got a back on it. You can see there. I just need to make another plate up and weld it. We're obviously not going to weld it on this engine. We're going to want to bolt this to something, because we definitely don't want it getting warped any more than it already is. With it bolted down and putting heat through it, hopefully that'll help sort out the warping. But I need to have it bolted down to something, because I do not want this making it rigid, not flat. So we're not going to bolt it to this engine, but we do have a blown up 2 litre over there, which is exactly the same, other than obviously the clearance issues, that we can bolt it to. That doesn't matter if we get any contaminants in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip that one over there upside down, take the sump off of it, put this sump on it, and then we're going to weld this plate onto this sump on that engine. And then when it's done, we're going to clean it all up, take it off, put it back on, test fit it, and then we're going to work on our bafflings. It's all getting very out of hand. I don't know what's quite happened here, but it has got a little bit out of hand. But we're going to get there. Okay, so this is the setup that I've come up with. I've got the old 2 litre that's fallen on its head, with our sump on it that we're modifying. I've got some magnets, and I've got them holding this plate in place where I want to weld it. Doesn't all line up perfectly, but that's fine. We're going to weld it, fill the holes with the weld, and then we'll go around the inside of the angle grinder afterwards and clean anything up that looks a little bit shite. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. The reason, I don't know if I mentioned why we're doing this on an engine, is to just try and stop warping. This sump, when you get it really hot, heat obviously makes things move, expands things, and will cause warping to things like metal, especially very thin sheet metal, which this is sort of. So we are definitely going to make sure we do as much as we can to stop this from warping. I could obviously clamp this down to a bench or whatever, but I've got an engine which to me is dead. It's seized. I've got no intention of putting it back on the road or even trying to recommission it. It's going to go in the bin afterwards, so we may as well use it for this one last job. Yeah, really happy with how it's all looking. We just got to get some weld on there now, get it all tacked in position, make sure I'm happy with where it's tacked, and then we'll fully send it. So I didn't record all of the time lapse because I needed my phone, but this is where we've got to tonight. It is on. The welds are not pretty, but they will be cleaned up, and we'll be checking for leaks. I've obviously got to do a plate on the back, otherwise we're going to have one very, very, very big leak. But the plan is to use the hole to trace onto a bit of cardboard and then cut out what we need and then just weld it in. So yes, we are nearly there for the clearance. Once it's all back together, we'll stick it on the engine and check the clearance. Yeah, work has been done. Okay, some work has been done since the last time you saw this engine. I was welding that plate on when you last saw it. You wouldn't believe how many hours of work has gone into actually getting this together. The fact that I only have an hour every now and again, it's taken me quite a while to get anywhere with it. It's all welded on. We've made our little plates. We've bowed out the bottom of the sump so that it meets flush, so that the idea is that when you accelerate, the oil that's sitting in this pan here would then be able to slosh into the sump, so that it doesn't just sit and only be that oil that's only ever in there, that it can move between the two. In hindsight, yeah, I probably could have gone all the way back and moved it, but I don't know what the clearances are going to be like, so I've only done what I know is absolutely necessary. It's all on, it's all welded on. I haven't leak tested it yet, but I will, and I'm pretty confident there are no holes. The welding is not amazing, but it has all penetrated, and it has molded together properly. It just doesn't look very pretty. So I may go over it with the angle grinder and clean it all up like I have done this bit at the bottom. I haven't turned it over yet to see if it clears, which is the absolute only reason that I've been doing this. So if it doesn't clear, I'm going to cry and we're going to go again. But if this turns over, does a full rotation, we know that we're good. I would say just from that we are good to go. Now what we are going to do is just check the clearance from the crankshaft to the sump. We want at least 3mm. We're going to use some blue tack. Just stick it to the bottom of the sump pan, turn it over and see how thick the blue tack is after we're done. So let's do that. Okay, so this is the plan. Got 2 brand new bits of blue tack, 'cause I didn't have any, so I bought some. We folded it in half and we just plonked it on there. We've got it stuck down nicely, so it ain't going to go nowhere, or isn't going to go anywhere. We've obviously got these 2, which are the culprits for smashing the life out of our sump, which is why we've had to do all of this extra work. We are basically going to see how much clearance we have. We want at least 3mm. Any less than that, then we're going to have to do a little bit of fiddling. Any more than that, we'll be absolutely fine. I can't imagine we're going to have a massive amount more than 3mm. So let's find out what happens, shall we? Okay, so I've not done this before, and this is just sort of an idea I had. So hopefully this works. Rotating it this way will bring up this one, and then I'm going to go backwards to do this one, because obviously I can't go past because I'm going to scrape all the blue tack off. So I'm going to go as far as I can until I feel resistance, which I do there. To be fair, I'll go until I stop feeling resistance. So I'm stopping to feel it now. Then I'm going to go back. And then I'm going to do the same this way. I think I just felt resistance there and we've gone past. So now I'm going to take the sump off and see what's happened. Hopefully it's not all fallen off and gone in the engine. If it has, I'll have to dig it out. Okay, so that probably couldn't have gone any better than I had hoped, really. Bit odd that this one scraped on the bottom here and this one didn't. I'm pretty sure I went back far enough for it to catch, but it doesn't seem to have done. But we can obviously take that. These are measured exactly the same. This plate is flat the whole way across. I'm pretty confident anyway. It might be slightly off, but not by that much. I wouldn't have thought. So what we're going to do is we're just going to measure how deep from here, well, at the top of this, to the bottom of the pan, and see how much we have. I have a little tread depth gauge, and I'm going to just plonk that in there and see what happens. So using this little trick, I plonk that in the hole. I figured that my hole is actually the exact depth of this. Oh, going to focus. Okay, maybe not. We'll do it from further away. The little flange on the end of this gauge is the exact depth. I've just measured it against a ruler because obviously we can't plonk that flat like we would on a tyre to measure it through the gauge. I'll measure it against the ruler, and that is exactly 3mm. So I'll say that's perfect. I'm going to assume that I didn't turn the engine back far enough for it to get a measurement on the back one, but that's absolutely fine. Given that this plate should be the same the whole way across, we should expect 3mm on the other side as well. So I'm quite happy with that, which means that our crankshaft will be dipping nicely in the oil as it goes round. If that matters too much, probably not, don't know. Anyway, time to crack on with doing some sump baffling. We're going to stick some plates in here, try and help with oil starvation. So I don't know how anybody else would have done this, but I've squirted some WD-40 around this flange, and I've stuck a bit of cardboard on it so that I can get a template, and then I'm going to cut it out. My hands were so slippery afterwards, I nearly dropped my phone, so big up WD. Good job. Does exactly what it's supposed to. And, well, I suppose it was a fairly good idea, because whatever's covered in WD now isn't going to rust. So, yeah, let's cut this out. Okay, so I've made myself a little template that fits in there nicely. I ended up taking too much off the corners, and I don't have a lot of cardboard to play with, so I improvised to make it fit. So I can now use this template to sketch onto a piece of metal. I didn't measure the width onto this, so it's a little bit wrong at the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure here to here, here to here, and then we'll draw our lines on the metal using the measurements, not the template, and then we'll just use this template to do the corners, because we need the corners to fit, and they were a little bit more fiddly to do. So I need to go and get some metal from over there somewhere and get started on making this template. Okay, so we're near enough done with the sump extension now, which is good. Apologise for the noise next door, the neighbour's doing some work in their house. Next thing I'm going to do is make sure we know how close the straining is to the bottom of the sump. what I've done for that is I've stuck a bit of blue tack in the bottom, put that over the top of it so they don't get stuck in the net, and pushed it on until it stopped moving. And we seem to have quite a bit of clearance, so I might actually adjust it so it's a little bit closer to the bottom. Maybe go for about 3mm again, just so it isn't touching, enough to have a little bit of movement if it needs it. And obviously the closer to the bottom it is, the more it will be submerged in oil under cornering. So yes, we want to make sure we get it as close as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, give it a little bit of an adjustment and try it again, and then we'll measure it again. Okay, so this is how I've ended up. I've just taken a measurement from this side, as this appears to be the lowest. I've tried not to go on this bit, obviously this bit's dipped down, so I've gone for the highest part on here where it's lowest in there. And we've got about 4mm, so I'm going to call that okay. Quite happy with that. Yeah, so now we've just got to tighten this up, make sure we don't forget to tighten that up, otherwise that's going to fall off. We don't want that to happen. So yes, let's tighten that up and call that done, and then we've got to figure out where we're going to do our baffling. Okay, so a little bit more progress has been made now that we've got the depth of our strainer. We also know where it lands. It lands in the middle there. I've started making my baffling plates. I wanted a bigger reservoir on the outside than what the actual strainer has to it, mainly because the quantity of the oil in the outside will have force without even like having oil slosh, will have force pushing against it, because the larger quantity on the outside we're pushing oil into the smaller area, and the flaps will be open on these. These are little plates I've got. These were on Amazon. They're a stainless steel plate, and they come with some rubber flaps that press into the top here, and obviously oil pushes on the inside of it, opens the flap, lets the oil in, and then the flap closes when the oil tries to go in the opposite direction. So we're planning to do something like this. I've marked up this one. This is my B plate. I don't know if you saw, I've marked those, and this is the A plate over here. You can see that goes in there and fits quite well. I'm not worried about it being an absolutely perfect fit, but yeah, it's pretty close. I'm pretty happy with that. Something is definitely better than nothing. And then when we've done these plates, I've made this up, as you saw the other day. We are going to cut out more of this, so there's going to be like a border that goes around the outside basically, and there'll be like a big hole next to the borders so that oil can slosh into the reservoir on the outside. And then obviously there will be a hole here as well, so oil still can come in down the strainer. So we might open that up a little bit more and make it more of a box than a circle, but that was just mocked up like that so that we could find out where it landed. But first we need to get these plates in so we know how high we need it, because we've got to the point on that where I need to know how high it needs to sit, because this tapers down to the bottom, and if I go to cut it too short, it's going to go really low, and if I cut it too long, it will then be too high. So I need to make sure I get the correct depth first for my plate before we can start cutting and doing those sort of things. So yes, I'm now going to cut this one, and hopefully both of the plates will then be done. We're going to have little tabs, and I think we're going to riv nut these together, or we'll riv nut them so that they fold together and then bolt to that plate, or maybe even just rivet them together, and then that way no chance of any bolts coming loose. So yeah, that is the plan. That's how we're getting on. I'm liking the progress. Just want to get it done now because the engine is practically there and we just need to get it in the car, but unfortunately lots of progress to be done still. Okay, so both of our brackets are made and they can sort of be plonked in there. I ended up coming a bit further over this way than I thought I was going to. I was going to end up where that line is, but I've gone a little bit further because this bracket was a little bit longer, and rather than cutting it down I just left it at the same length it was, so there's even shape, even size hole, which is nice. We've gone 70mm from the bottom. That should be plenty enough to submerge the strainer and also give us plenty of oil on top that will instantly fill, hopefully. Yes, so I'm quite happy with how it's going on. I'm going to take my brackets out. Got a magnet holding me this in. We're going to riv nut and we're going to bolt them all down, so it's all going to be nut and bolted together so it's easily removable. I very much do not think that it's going to come apart while it's together. As long as we do it up tight enough, should be absolutely fine. It's not going to be a massively high revving engine, so vibrations shouldn't be too much of an issue. And my thought process is, well, if everything else doesn't come loose on an engine, why the hell should this? So that is the mentality that I'm going at it with, and hopefully it works out okay. If it falls apart, I can't imagine it's going to cause any real issues because the plates are so big, they're not going to get clogged in the strainer or anything. It's just going to start moving about, and we might notice that our oil pressure disappears when we are cornering or braking hard. So what I'm going to do now, I've got this in the correct position, is I'm going to stick some weld on there, and I'm going to do that for this side as well. Get those two welded together, and then we can get them bolted down, and then we can figure out drilling the holes in the ends over here to bolt the two plates together. Once that's done, we can then think about doing our top plate. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit different than the last time you saw it. This is now what I'm going to consider done. The objective here isn't to completely stop oil from being able to exit the area where the pickup is. It is just to slow it down, and that's the sort of thing I'm going for. This isn't a competition sump. This isn't going to be a precisely engineered sump so that it works absolutely perfectly. It is going to be slowing down the movement of the oil from the pickup, but allowing oil to still flow back in, just so that we can take a little bit more corners a little bit quicker, we can brake a little bit harder, because these engines do suffer with a little bit of oil starvation under some load, even on road use and road tyres, which is quite frightening actually, because I have seen the oil light come on multiple occasions. So yeah, this is now done. I've just got to test fit it on the engine to make sure it does fit. I haven't fitted the flaps yet because I've still got to paint the sump, and to paint it I'm going to have to heat it up because I'm using high temp paint, and that stuff likes to set on warm surfaces, so I don't want to melt my rubber flaps. So let's go and test fit it on the engine, turn it over and make sure it fits. Okay, so the sump is on. It's only put in by a couple of bolts, but it's enough on there for us to test it to make sure that we have enough clearance. Now we know the clearance up this end is going to be okay, and I'm pretty sure I've measured well enough to know that the clearance is going to be fine up this end too, because we're quite a lot lower with our little baffling setup than we would be with this plate anyway. But it's always good to check it before you send it all back together and call it a day. So we're going to do one full rotation, top dead center. Well, the marker for top dead center is here, so we're just going to turn it over, and one rotation will be enough, but I am going to go twice. No clearance issues whatsoever, so we can now send it all back together after we paint it. So once I was happy that it was all fitting on the engine fine, we've gone ahead and painted it. It's black, high temperature, matte black. Yeah, and it's done. I've fitted the flaps. These little things are going to open when oil wants to come in, and then when it wants to go out, it's going to shut. We've got some, like, I suppose, safety measures, leaving the gaps at the bottom here, and then also leaving a gap down the side here, so that if for whatever reason we have any issues with these flaps, oil can still get around. It'll obviously be restricted, but it'll give you a little bit more, hopefully give me a little bit more of a warning if we do have any issues. I don't see you having any issues with this setup though. The oil level should be high enough to be consuming this entire area all the time anyway. And obviously it's all leaned over into the pickup area, so it'll all be aimed towards that pickup and hopefully won't cause any oiling issues. So I'm going to stick it on the engine now. As before, we're going to use weld seal around the bottom of the sump and on the block, put the gasket on, put the bolts on and tighten them up. While we're ever doing like a modification of a sump, it's always good to make sure you leave your dipstick in the hole, just so you know where it's going to land. It's something that's very easily forgotten when you're trying to make room for the pickup. But if I hadn't have remembered to put that dipstick in, there's a good chance that I wouldn't have made this sidewall big enough. I would have made this sidewall too big, because the pickup for the dipstick is right here, and then we would have had issues. But fortunately, I did the sensible thing. I stuck it in there with some sticky tape before I started, and we have all of our clearance correct. So let's plonk it on. Okay, so I fitted the sump. There it is, right at the bottom there. Very happy with it. So long as it clears the chassis once the engine's in, we'll be good as gold. I've done a couple of extra other jobs between the last clip and now. Fitting the sump wasn't difficult. It's literally just well sealed gasket, put it on, bolt it up, don't over tighten it. Pretty simple. I put the water pump on, put a bit of well seal over here, put a little bit of well seal on the gasket both sides, tightened it up, painted a bracket up from the alternator, painted the alternator, fitted my mounts, brackets and the mounts. I need to draw a line somewhere to how much stuff I paint, and I've stopped at the engine mounts. They're good enough in my books, because this is going to probably end up looking a little bit like this engine mount at some point. Also fitted the cooling pipe that runs behind the exhaust manifold, and obviously the mount on this side as well. Unsure whether I'm going to need this with a new carburetor setup, but I've put it on anyway just in case. So yeah, that's pretty much as far as we've got for tonight. I was about to put the auxiliary belt on, but I ordered one for a GT6, and that's turned up, and it is wrong. It's too long. So I have now measured how long I want it to be with a bit of string. Measured at 100 centimeters is how long I want it to be. So I need to get 100 centimeters or slightly smaller. Don't really want to go much bigger, because that's with it adjusted halfway. I don't want to go too far in, because I'm going to be clashing with my spark plugs a little bit. Spark plug HT leads. So I don't want to go in any further than that. This probably is the wrong bracket for this setup, but it does the job. It did the job on the last engine anyway. So yeah, that is as far as we've got for tonight, and that is probably where I'm going to call this video. It's been quite a long video, I will admit. We did a lot more in this video than I was anticipating, but we are nearly there. I'm going to button up a few little last things on this engine, which is literally just put the auxiliary belt on and put a temperature sensor in the top of the water pump there, if we're going to use it in that location. And then yeah, it's ready to go back in the car. Obviously we need to convert the oil filter over, but that's already on the car, so we'll just fit that once it's done. So yeah, engine is fundamentally done, and there's not going to be any more episodes on this engine until we fit it. The next episode is more than likely going to be on our gearbox. That's not staying in third gear, so we're going to change the detent springs on that, so that's going to be the next job. So yes, there are obviously a few things that I need to tighten up on this once I've got it in the car, like the crank pulley bolt. It's not a very pretty setup that I've got going on here with the extra washers, but it is going to work, and trying to get the right washers or spacers machined. If I had a lathe, I could make them up really easy, but unfortunately I don't have a lathe, so I'm going to have to stick with using washers until maybe one day I get one. That is going to be functional, just needs to be tightened up. It's not as tight as it needs to be, but I'm going to do that once the engine is in the car and I can put it in gear on the floor and just it up a little bit. So yeah, really happy with the progress. And hopefully this won't be too much longer before we get it in the car and hopefully try and get it running. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.